This is Show and Tell, a podcast where we ask people to show us a little of themselves and tell us a lot about their businesses. Buhle Madulini, am I pronouncing your surname properly?
That's proper.
Welcome to Show and Tell. Thank you for being here. We really appreciate your time. You and I have known each other for a good few years now, but I'm certain there's a lot more about you that I can still learn. And as luck would have it, or fortuitously, this show insists that you bring something along with you of personal significance to show us, to get us to learn a bit more about you. Do you have something that you want to show us and maybe tell us about?
Oh, well, first of all, thank you for having me, Shane. It's
Pleasure.
really good to have this conversation with such a good friend of mine. So this is a picture of myself, Brian Habana, and Jean de Villiers standing next to the World Cup trophy.
Wow.
This was during the Rugby World Cup trophy tour before the 2019 World Cup. Of course, we went and won that one. And you'll see why. It's not really about the picture. I'm not someone who's very sentimental about things, but it's the idea of me standing next to people that I grew up with them being my heroes, next to, in front of, or behind something that I've always wanted to go and achieve. And growing up, my main goal in life, at some stage, was to be, let's call it Siyakolisi in 2019. I always dreamt of being a Springbok rugby captain, and I had earmarked the 2019 Rugby World Cup as that moment. Life happened, unfortunately, but this is something to me that is one of my favorite pictures in the house. I really, really like it, but also it embodies a lot of who I am.
How did you get into that picture? Because that's not a picture, the average Joe will be able to get into, because you're right there with the guys. Was that after the game?
No, so it's funny. I don't want to call that my colleagues average Joes, but they also got the same picture. They all got the same picture. So
okay.
The trophy tour is at MultiChoice. For those who might not know, I work for SuperSport, and I have been there for the last 10 years or so. And I was actually working on this production as one of the journalists. So I was working alongside these two guys. And I had no reason to go take the picture, but I thought to myself, listen, these are my childhood heroes. This is a moment. And everyone took pictures, holding them or whatever. And I said, no, guys, let's look fierce. The thing that I'm really proud of, I think I'm the tallest amongst the three of them. It
looks like you are.
It looks like I am. So I'm really proud of that. So this is something that, I like quite a lot in the house, and I usually walk past it with a bit of pride. The second thing is...
Before you go there,
yeah.
Now, how old were you when you targeted the 2019 Rugby World Cup? And I assume, you must have been involved with playing rugby then.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think I was still in high school. I must have been 17, 18. I'd when I was 16, I broke into the junior bull structures for the first time, and I remember the school made a fuss about it, and there were teachers making me sign autographs and all of these things, and my head got way too big way too quickly. But I was about that age. I was about 16, 17, 18.
Yeah? What position did you play?
I played lock. So my main position was lock. I was always considered a bit of a short lock. At that time, I am 1.9 meters, but I was always considered a bit of a short lock. I mean, if you stand next to Ibn Etzebeth, it's like I'm by his navel almost.
Anyone,
right? But that was when I put that out as into the universe as something that I really wanted to achieve. And I've always been, I guess we'll also get to it, but I've always been someone who's been a big dreamer, and who's been able to really visualize what I want to go after, and then try by all means to get there.
So you got to the Rugby World Cup, but not as a player. What happened?
Well, I didn't actually go to the Rugby World Cup. I got to work on it, but I stayed behind. I worked on it from Iranburg, and that was me covering it now as a journalist and a reporter. The lovely thing is that I also worked on 702 and on Prime Media, 702 and 947 at the time, and I got to start a podcast with John Robbie and Robbie Kempson for the Rugby World Cup. And that was kind of a highlight moment in my career for me. And that podcast was flighted on SuperSport as well. We did like a whole deal with SuperSport as Prime Media. And it was a really nice time. And I mean, what a World Cup to be on the front lines of, right? You go and you win that thing. So I didn't go to the Rugby World Cup, but I really got to work on the Rugby World Cup deeply. And even the last one, 2023, I was very involved. But from this side, I've got this rule. I don't like going to work at sporting events. I want to go there to celebrate and to support. and I want to work there with a beer, or I want to watch with a beer in my hand. And I can't really do that if I'm working.
But you probably get the best view and access to the players when you're there in a professional capacity, don't you?
Absolutely. You get a really good view. You get good seats. The access is what's unmatched. I mean, I can't mention a Springbok that I haven't been in close proximity to over the last 5 to 10 years. I've had some really big interviews in my life as well. I mean, I've interviewed Thierry Henry, which I think is the biggest one. I've met Ryan Giggs. You get quite a lot of access in this space. A lot of the All Blacks I've been in very close proximity with. And you really learn that they're just normal guys, really nice guys as well. Sportsmen tend to be really, really down-to-earth, humble. And you know, that's also the nature of the game. You can't be too full of yourself because you still have to work hard to prove yourself every day as a sportsman.
And how has your career progressed? I mean, what are you into now?
I'm still at SuperSport.
Right.
I will say that.
Your voice is quite familiar.
Yeah. So if you watch Channel 200,
I think I've heard you on Channel 200.
Yeah. If you watch SuperSport Blitz, I'm one of the voices on SuperSport Blitz, and that's something that I started there 10 years ago, and SuperSport Blitz actually gave me my in into the industry, and that's how Prime Media picked me up. And I've moved around. I've done Newsroom Africa as well at some stage. I was anchoring there as well. I did a bit of Kai FM as well recently. So I've been on a nice merry-go-round in the industry, but I've tapered back. I've tapered back quite heavily, and I only focus on SuperSport Blitz at the moment. And that's mainly because of my business interests. That's mainly because I am somebody that really believes that dreams evolve. And this was my dream. So one of my dreams was to play rugby. And after rugby, I'd planned to go into broadcasting.
Okay.
And after broadcasting, I said, well, I'll do business. I always thought to myself, the broadcasting, I'd also use it as a way to open doors. You know, it's easier. You've got access not only to rugby players, but you also have access to some pretty important people who know you because they watch you every day, listen to you. Some of them like you, and some even admire you. And these are, you know, people who are very, very important. And it's been something that's worked for me quite well, I would say. So that is that. If I may, my second point, my second show and tell.
Sure.
The main show and tell. And like I said, this is woven through my life, and I'm sure we'll get to that, is my ring on my finger.
Yeah.
Right? The reason why, it's not because of the ring. It's a nice ring, I think, but I don't really care for it much, but it's what it represents. You know, I married my wife after knowing her not knowing her, but dating her for 6 months.
Okay.
Actually, in 2 days from now, it's going to be 6 years of marriage.
Wow.
After 6 months. But it's what she represents in my life in terms of my ambitions and allowing me the freedom to go for whatever it is that I'd like to go for. And of course, we are more willing to take on risk than women in general, men in general. And that's why you have a wife, to save you from losing the house, you know?
I think your wife took on some risk in this scenario.
She absolutely did. But
After 6 months?
Well,
how did you know?
Oh, I knew.
How did you know she was the one? How did she know you were the one?
I knew after a few weeks. I just knew. I can't explain it. There was just some magic there, and it just made sense. And I thought to myself, you know, I think I could deal with the worst of this person because I love her like this already. And, you know, I remember she said she loved the way I loved her. And that was her thing. And that's sort of what swayed her, you know. And 6 months later, there was a delegation at our house, and we did the things.
See, I was right. There were things about you I didn't know. Thanks so much for sharing.
Absolutely. So those are my two But of course, and she gave me 2 beautiful children since, and we're building together. And she's always been a great support and help for whatever that I'm trying to achieve in life. Yeah.
Now, Buhle, tell me about what you're doing in business.
So, since then, should I tell you what I'm doing now, or should we start?
Start at the beginning.
At the beginning?
Yeah.
So my first foray into business, I was 23. I went into logistics. Myself and my best friend's dad, one of my best friend's dad, we commandeered a truck, and we started.
You commandeered.
We commandeered it. I won't tell you how. But
sounds illegal.
It nearly was, but hey, it worked. And we went into the industry, and still wet behind the ears. I, at some stage in my life, lived with them. My best friend.
Okay.
I've lived in many houses throughout my life, and I finished my high school career living with them. And he's a diesel mechanic, so I was very close to these beautiful beasts that are on the road.
Your friend or your friend's dad?
My friend's dad is the diesel mechanic,
okay.
But him and his wife were kind enough to take me in when I really needed somewhere to go.
Okay.
And I got to know about this industry like that, and I thought to myself, geez, I'm hooked. I've always wanted to be in business. So even when I said I wanted to be Siyakolisi, like I said, the dreams were layered. As a child, you're like, I want to be a policeman, I want to be a cop, I want to be a pilot, I want to be a soldier. I was like that all through my life, but they evolved and they became more staggered and understood that there would be a place and time for each dream and for me to chase those dreams. So one of the dreams had always been business.
Okay.
Forever. I've always said I want to be a businessman. I lie. I actually said I wanted to be the president of the country. And then growing up, I realized...
Who happens to also be a businessman.
Who happens to be a businessman. But growing up, I realized I think businessmen can influence more and affect change without all the bureaucracy. So you can go and, put some kids through school or whatever. My passion is helping people out and, building people and hopefully the nation.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, okay, well, obviously I also want to live well, but I want to help people out. And I thought that would be a great way to do it, by being a businessman. So I got into the trucking game at 23. Terrible start. Sent a truck to, I can't exactly remember, but it was some in Mpumalanga. Got the load from a broker. Turns out the broker didn't have all his papers. The truck stood for about a week while he was trying to sort out these papers. He wasn't telling me. And how I found out that he didn't have his papers is I called an insurance company to, I can't remember what it was to check on, but to check on something that had to do with that process, us getting that load and loading and taking it to where it needed to be. And the lady was like to me, I just spoke to someone who's actually dealing with a truck there. And I said, oh, interesting. What's his name? And she says the name. And I said, what? That's my broker. And before she said the name, but she just said to me, no, this guy doesn't have his things in order, He's actually in big trouble. And I thought to myself, gee, who's this guy? Turns out it was the guy that I was working with, which meant I was in big trouble.
Oh, my.
And the person who had loaned us the truck, after a while, he said, listen, guys, as much as, I like you guys and whatever, but it doesn't make business sense for me to have this thing just standing there and the wheels aren't turning. So unfortunately, if you can't pay the first payment at the end of the month, I need to take it back. And it took about a week. I needed to get a load back. I managed to get a load back, but by that time the load was to pay for the driver who had been there for a week, for the crewman who had been there for a week, for the diesel, and a little bit for whiskey just to drown my sorrows. So by that time it was essentially, that's where it ended. But my business venture didn't end, and I started working for other logistics companies, and I got to experience that side of the business from within a business that's already established.
On that, the trucking business can be quite a challenging business.
It is.
What were some of the challenges that you encountered when you went a little bit further into the trucking game?
It had always been crooks. I think the biggest challenge is crooks in the trucking game, be it from your diesel. Sometimes your driver is the crook. Sometimes he goes to a depot, and at the depot they're the crook, and they sell you watered down or paraffinated diesel. Another thing was brokers. My word! And unfortunately, when you're a smaller person in the trucking industry, you're not going to go in and get a contract if you've got one truck at the start.
Explain a bit about how the brokers work.
So usually what happens is the brokers, and you are very lucky if you find a broker who gets the deal directly from the source. But a broker is somebody who will go and canvas for various loads and various deals and then try to match that with transporters, and then they take a cut.
So they don't do the transporting themselves?
They don't do the transporting themselves.
They basically play in the middle of the supply chain.
100%. And there's a lot of money to be made as a middleman, and I understand that. But now what happens is I'm the broker. I'm Buhle, and I got this load, and I say, Shane, listen, I've got 100 loads coming out this month. I need somebody to put it on the road for me. And you say, okay, cool. Let me call a guy, and you call a guy, and your guy says, okay, cool. I'll get you trucks. Now what happens is there's cuts going all the way down. You might even give me a cut because I gave you some business.
Sure.
And what happens when your profit margin gets eroded very quickly, you end up with just more than operating capital, for that load. And after you pay your diesel and, having to do your service once a month, you're pretty much left with nothing. Very, very little. But it's possible to build from that. It's possible to build from that if you do have a very solid foundation, which leads me to my next point. I didn't have a solid foundation after I got back into the trucking game. I left the trucking game at 2015, and that's when I went into media, which has been amazing. And then just during COVID, towards the end of COVID, my wife and I took the risk and we got back into it. And I learned the toughest lessons I've ever learned in that moment.
Back into trucking?
Back into trucking.
Okay, what happened?
So we got some money, and I won't mention how we got the money, but it was nothing illegal. But
it's good to know.
some things. But we managed to get together about 400,000 rand. Not much, but with a diesel mechanic who is my best friend's dad, as close he is to me, who's essentially my dad, my adopted father, in a way, I was able to have confidence of buying a cheaper truck, knowing that if anything would happen, as long as he is, happy with the truck, we would be okay.
Right. I'm assuming it's a second-hand truck.
It was absolutely a second-hand truck for 400,000, not much. And then
and he's your backup as a mechanic.
He's the main backup as a mechanic.
Okay.
He works in Pretoria, and we were in Joburg, but he's such a good mechanic. You can call the guy and he'll tell you to put the phone to the engine, and he'll be like, oh, that's the problem.
Seriously?
He's excellent. Best mechanic I've ever experienced in my life. He's amazing. So I had faith in that. And we got this truck. We had two options. We had a cheaper truck, which would allow us to have a little bit of operating capital.
Okay.
And then we had one that would cut us on that margin of our operating capital. And the cheaper one was obviously the worst option, and the option we went with. Yeah. So because
in Afrikaans they have a saying, "Goedkoop is duur koop."
Yeah, that was baie duur.
You buy cheap, it's going to cost you a bit later.
Yeah, it was very expensive.
Okay.
Bought the cheap truck.
But you needed some working capital. You needed some operating capital.
Absolutely, and because we also, I'd done just enough to say, okay, I'm going to get the truck. I know where to go and rent a trailer, and then we can hook and go. We had loads, still through brokers, some of them, but at least consistently enough. And some brokers, though, also taught me very, very good lessons in life. And we got this thing on the road, bought the cheaper truck. Turns out it was a problematic truck. It was a dud. It ran for about 6 months, but 3 of those months it ran breaking down almost every day. And it was probably the most stressful time of my life. I remember I sleep like a baby all the time. That was the first time I couldn't sleep.
Trucks have a lot of moving parts. So what sort of breakdowns were you experiencing?
Most of them were engine breakdowns, of course. Okay. Most of them were engine breakdowns. But I mean, we also had axles. We had oil leaking out of one of the axles. And now, but the brilliance of my diesel mechanic, understanding that, look, okay, you can't let the engine drain, the oil drain over axle because it's going to seize.
Yeah.
So every, 200 kilometers, top it up. It's going to leak. It's leaking, but you can still drive until you get back home. But, this is all happening, you have to first find the solution, and then you realize, okay, well, I can't afford right now to be driving out to, and this one happened, the truck was in Mpumalanga, not in Mpumalanga, in Limpopo, coming back from somewhere in Venda, I think Toyando. And, now you realize, like, okay, I can't go there, because what am I going to do? I'm going to go there and like tell the guy, oh, this is bad. I know it's bad.
Sure.
So there's no reason for me to be there. And then also you look for mechanics, which there are around, but then that also then requires more money. And so the guy said, listen, let's just top it up with the oil and get it to me, and I'll see. And then we had to replace the seals and so those and then the one we had a load, I think it was to Coca-Cola, I think. And we also had one to the mines somewhere in Mpumalanga. And, you can't pull in your truck into Coca-Cola. I think it was the one by Al Road, Alberton side, or into a mine if your truck doesn't start. And we had a starter problem as well. so
yeah, that's pretty important.
It's pretty important because you hold up the whole queue, right? Even if you can, but they're like, it must start first turn. And I had never been closer to God that week on those two occasions. And the one we even, we sat back and we said, listen, let's just take some time, take a day or two and just keep on starting it and whatever. And eventually we're like, we need to fulfill this load because we've got pallets on the back.
Right.
We need to go drop these pallets off. And fortunately, first turn it started, because you get there, you switch it off, it started. So it goes into the yard. When you got into the yard, and they offload it, they tell you, switch off your track. Switches off the track. It's like, he didn't want to, but he's like, okay. The track didn't start. So he calls me and he's like, hey, boss, this track is not starting, da-da-da-da. I said, listen, just keep on cranking. We had bought some Doom for him. Because
Doom?
Yeah. So you can use it. It's quick start. There's like a aerosol where it's quick start, and you can spray it into a part of the engine and you turn it, and it causes the combustion and it allows the engine to start turning. It was Doom. So you can either
I know Doom is the insect.
No. There's a quick start, brand, but that's like, especially for someone who's leaking money, it's too expensive. Yeah. Doom is cheap.
So you actually used Doom?
I actually used Doom.
So
it could have killed the truck, but turns out
I didn't know you could use Doom for that.
Yeah, he used Doom. So he used that as a method to kickstart it, and fortunately it worked. But eventually it just became too much. It started eroding our personal finances at home. I was still working at the time, as you do, until your company stands. But it eroded the personal finances, and it was a toll on myself. It was a toll on my wife.
Yeah.
And eventually I just decided to put a pause to that. I mean, I still own the vehicle. I haven't sold it.
Okay.
I think it will be, I'll one day put it on top of something and just as a memento of where I've been and how far I've come.
But it's really tough to do, to be working full time and try and start a business on the side.
Absolutely.
That's tough to do.
Absolutely. I'm very lucky in the industry that I am that we get to work odd hours. I oftentimes work in the evening from 3, 4, 5 in the evening until about midnight or 1 in the morning. Okay. And that allows me the rest of the day to work from 9, let's say, and get whatever it is that I need to do and go to do meetings and whatever it is. It's a long day, but I mean, you do what you need to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're following your dream.
Following the dream. It's a difficult thing to do, but if it was easy, everyone would be, multi-millionaires and businessmen, and yeah. It's just,
I often say that to people at work when they complain about how difficult the task is. I always say to them, if it was easy, we wouldn't have needed you.
100%.
Business is difficult.
100%.
And the more difficult it is sometimes, probably the better the concept you're working on.
Yeah.
But it takes a lot.
It does.
Especially if you have a job on the side.
Yeah.
Well, if you're working full time and you're trying to establish a business on the side.
Yeah, it does. But something that I think, if it's a passion of yours, it's worth it.
And you keep going.
Worth it. You have no choice. You fail, you fall. And this is where I want to get back to this rugby picture.
Yeah.
As I said, I played rugby, and I played quite a high level of rugby. I'm a decent rugby player. Sometimes I'm a better rugby player than cricket player. You would know because we've played some cricket games together.
It's true.
But rugby teaches you a lot of things. It teaches you, how to get processes in line to achieve a certain goal. It teaches you the discipline thereof. It teaches you how to fail and how to stand up and how to work hard and how to not shy away from the pain of hard work. Be it a pre-season where you're doing fitness and you're running until, I'm sorry to say, you throw up, or you're going into a contact point and you want to win that contact point because it gives your guys front football. You have to think quickly and get your body right, get your hips square, drive through your feet, center of gravity, and all of those is a process that you always need to understand in order for you to get there. And I found that, but especially the discipline, I found that that's been the biggest takeaway from me playing rugby, is that it's taught me to be extremely disciplined, especially if you're chasing it on a professional level. There is no room for ill discipline. There's no room for a slip up here and there. Yeah, you can relax, but not slip up when you have the time. And that's what business, I think, needs. It needs somebody who's very, headstrong, steadfast, disciplined, able to change and reassess according to the situation that's in front of them, but not throw away the game plan.
Yeah.
And then you continue to move forward.
It's been my experience as well. I often say the freedom is in the discipline.
Yeah.
So if you are disciplined and you follow the right processes, you put the right systems in place, you train people, you mentor people so that they understand the approach that they must take. In that discipline, you'll find the freedom because through that process, you can win as a business. Yeah. And you're then able to relax a bit, because you don't have so many things going wrong in a business.
Yeah.
You have a lot of things going wrong in a business when you don't have the discipline in place. And when you have things going wrong that are unpredictable, that's what really draws you in and keeps you hectically busy trying to sort out things that you didn't anticipate.
Yeah.
But when you have the discipline, it buys you the freedom.
Exactly. They say everyone has a plan until you get punched in the face. Well, boxers stick to their plan once they get punched in the face, because you understand that that's part of your game.
That's true.
Yeah.
And now, Buhle, business-wise, the truck is parked somewhere.
The truck is
in an undisclosed location.
In an undisclosed location. I'm a very shifty individual, actually. You said you'd learn some things about me today. Well, here you go. Very, very shifty this time.
I am learning a few things.
Yeah, so the truck is parked somewhere. And, having people like you in my life has motivated me and allowed me to think beyond that. I remember the first time I spoke to you, I knew you had a fleet of trucks. And maybe I was a bit naive to think that was the business. I knew you were in petroleum, but I thought, he's got trucks. I mean, surely he can give me some advice on trucking. And I remember you always going, well, I don't really know much about trucking. I just have trucks to deliver my product, and that's what I do, But those kind of things got the ball rolling and a wheel turning in my head. And, having multiple conversations with you over maybe even too much time, I've then ventured into petroleum. And at least now I've got someone to blame. But it's also, as anything good it doesn't come easy. It's also a very, difficult.
Sure.
I don't like using the word difficult, because difficult also makes it seem like it's a bit unattainable.
Challenging.
It's challenging, but I like challenge. I like, and that's exactly the rugby thing, know. I knew that I needed to get to a certain level of fitness in order to play my best.
Yeah.
It was challenging to get there, absolutely. But once you get there, you enjoy the freedom of being able to rest. There's a saying that you rest on the rugby field. You rest when you're not scrumming or when the ball is dead.
Yeah.
But you need to be fit to rest in that moment. Otherwise, you'll be dying in that moment. So the challenges that it comes with are challenges that I'm very ready to take on. I don't by any stretch of the imagination think that I know them, all of them. And I don't know what they'll require from me, but I know that I'm ready to work in whatever it is that is needed. So that's where I am now. I've gotten into the petroleum space, very, very wet behind the ears, very young.
How long have you been at it now?
2 months.
2 months. Okay.
2 months. 2 months. This is my second month, actually.
Yeah, you're about 35 years behind me.
I'm about 35 years behind you. Yeah, which is fine. I'll take that. You look good for someone who's 35 years ahead of me, by the way.
You're very kind.
But the reason why it's been 2 months is also because of the bureaucracy of government processes.
Yeah.
You know, we applied for a trading license, a wholesale trading license last year already. I mean, at the time of recording, this is October the 3rd today? The 2nd, 3rd, somewhere there. We applied...
It's the 3rd.
October the 3rd, 2025. We applied in December 2024. The timing was off because everything closed. You need to go and advertise in newspapers and whatever, and I couldn't do that. So I reapplied on the 6th of January. It's October the 3rd.
But why did you have to reapply?
Actually, I didn't have to. I could have used the same application, but the guy who was helping me at the time just gave me a new, reference number, essentially created a new application for me, and that's what it was. Unfortunately, because it has delayed me, but it's only delayed me by a month. I know that they were working on my December application last month because I got correspondence in regards to that. I've always been expecting it to come out in October, but this was a license that the turnaround time is 90 days for it. You know, it's the turnaround in theory. So that was supposed to come out at the end of March.
Yeah.
Essentially. It's October and
it's almost there.
It's almost
Can you imagine there was a time before 2001 we didn't need a license?
That's insane.
Yeah.
And how long did it take you to get your license after 2001?
Well, we started Gulfstream Energy in 2009. So I got the license for the business. It took 4 months then.
Okay. Yeah.
It took 4 months.
Yeah.
So it was quite quick. I think it was a reasonable sort of time frame. But I believe it's become more difficult, and the time frame has become much longer.
Yeah.
But I think there's just so many more licenses that are also being applied for.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that they do say that's the cause, is that there's, you know, a massive backlog because of the number of people applying for petroleum licenses.
I've also heard thousands of licenses have been issued. But not many of those companies trade with any regularity. So I think more consideration is being given to licenses being issued these days than perhaps before. But, you know, as it goes, regulation makes things more difficult over time. And people that have been in industries for long periods of time will always tell you it was much easier, you know, back then. Because mostly there was lower or there was less regulation.
Yeah, and that's the thing. There's an issue, and you hear a lot of business people complain about the red tape for small business in South Africa in general. It's very difficult.
Have you experienced that? I mean, outside of the licensing?
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult. It's difficult, you know. Like if you apply for funding, I understand the model of having to be compliant. You know, whether it's with your tax and, you know, you've got your CK documents and everything else that you need. But then, you know, you have things like you're asking someone who's got this idea to draft a business plan, and before the advent of AI, that was a specialist thing. I've tried many. You know, in my youth, I used to draft business plans, and I'd only get to about 3 pages, and I'd be like, no, stuff this. I'm gonna go play rugby. You know, how about I try that? But you know, now it's quick. So fortunately, technology has allowed us to lower that barrier, but it's not as a result of any of government's doing, unfortunately. And it's a difficult thing because South Africa is now sitting in a place where, you know, you hear, no, we want to stimulate growth of business, small business, but then it's so difficult. You have to have financial statements. I haven't traded a day in my life. Maybe I registered my company 2 years ago and I've had a bank account, and every couple of months I'd put some money in there to make sure it doesn't close, but I haven't traded. But they're like, no, we need audited financial statements. Where am I going to get the money for that? You know, so it becomes, I've experienced that as well, where it's been very, very difficult. Fortunately, in, you know, trying anything, if you don't give up, you end up finding ways. You create those networks and those connections. And I've managed to get, you know, a very good person on my company's finances who can now do all of those things for me and whatever financial needs I have. And we've got a very good working relationship. And that's been the saving grace. But I imagine that other people maybe don't have that access. But they've got the dream and they've got the will and the drive.
It is I think it's a big challenge for South Africa. You know, if you want to make it easier as government for businesses to thrive, you need to do less things, not more things.
Exactly.
Because the moment you do more things, it tends to be regulation.
Yeah.
And regulation is going to make things more difficult.
Yeah.
So you need to open the sector up. I mean, I heard that 70% or 80% of jobs that South Africans have is in the small to medium enterprise sector. Without that sector, you'll never be able to deal with unemployment, without that sector thriving.
Absolutely.
So in other words, if you look at it differently, if you want to create more employment, you've got to be able to grow small and medium businesses in South Africa.
Yeah.
And it becomes very difficult to do when you continue to introduce more and more regulation.
Yeah, I remember.
And what I also found is regulation tends to keep honest companies honest.
Yes.
Right? If you're going to be dishonest, regulation doesn't seem to stop companies.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
But what it does is compliance requires you to do a lot of work.
Yeah.
So in our business, I may spend probably a third of my time on compliance issues. Those things you were speaking about.
Yeah.
Audited financials, audits, license renewals. There's a number of things that you need to do all the time just to keep your business going.
Yeah.
So that takes your focus off being able to grow your business and being able to, through that, create more employment, etc., etc. So it is quite a big challenge for small businesses.
It is.
And bigger businesses for that matter.
Absolutely. And I grew up on the streets of Pretoria, right? And this is somewhere where obviously a lot of my childhood was formed and a lot of my ideologies and who I am today was formed. And something that really used to irk me, when we talk about government and their inability to allow for business growth and just to get the economy moving. You'd have a lot of vendors on the streets of Pretoria. In the morning, you walk past them, and it's the same in Joburg, obviously, and all other cities around the country. And you walk past them, and it's, umama, an old lady who's putting her children through school, and she's selling, whether it be fat cakes or sweets or whatever it is. And you'd get Metro Police who come and they confiscate, all the product and their stock. But also what I used to be annoyed by is how they would approach them, and they'd come and they'd kick over their things, and you're spilling essentially this person's livelihood on the street. And I always used to think to myself, instead of doing that, why don't you just formalize them? Yeah. And I understand the reason is we're not drawing tax from their earnings, which is essentially legal. But then give them a bank account. Formalize it. I don't know, somehow register them, but without the bureaucracy and the red tape, and you need to have this and that. And, if somebody's there and they're really just trying to support their kids, and you don't know who that kid is and what they'll become, that child,
who they could be,
who they'll be.
There should be thresholds for that, though.
What do you mean?
People making, small businesses under a certain level shouldn't pay tax.
Absolutely.
And I think they are. I think they are to a degree.
Yeah.
But I mean, to have people like that harassed on the street is not right.
And I guess it's the formalization.
It's just not okay.
And I know that there are people who use those kind of setups in the street to push, bad agendas and maybe sell drugs and whatever the case is. And I don't mind the raid of, the stock and seeing what it is. But I honestly think if you've got a mama, a tata who is really trying to do everything to just put bread on the table, they should be allowed. And that's one of the things that really inspires me as well. And I don't know how that will work out in my life in future, but I'm hoping that it's something that I can do to help people like that and see what happens with that.
Now, Buhle, we have, we know each other personally, but we're also doing a bit of business together. With you looking to enter the petroleum industry and do a few things in the petroleum industry, we've agreed to support you to some degree along your journey. And I think to that extent, you've already gone out there and started to test the waters in terms of selling petroleum solutions, haven't you?
I have. Yeah, the waters are murky and still at the moment. It's very. Yeah, sales is a soul-sapping thing to do. It really is. There are people who are cut out for sales, and there are people who do sales because we have to. And I think I'm the latter. I'm able to sell and I'm able to do it, but there's a lot of...
I don't agree with you.
You really?
No. You look like you've got sales written all over you.
Look, I think I can sell. I don't think I don't think I can sell. I know I can sell, and I'm not bad at it. But the reason why I say that is, it's, sales is a game of numbers. We all know this, and anyone, you can read any sales book, you can watch any podcast, they'll tell you exactly that. Sales is a game of numbers, game of odds, and the more no's you get, the quicker you get to a yes, right? The closer you get to a yes. And obviously, you try to minimize the no's, but it's inevitable that you're going to minimize the no's. And that's where I'm at the moment, where, you knock on doors. First, it's getting through the receptionist. I must say, on that point, I happen to have quite a lot of fortune when it comes to lady receptionists. I'm thinking maybe
I wonder why.
I'm thinking maybe it's the voice or the good looks. I don't know, the charm. Who knows? I'll put it out there. But I do find that it's easier for me, even when I get past the receptionist, if the person who's in procurement or whatever it is on the other side is a female, I tend to just have more, they're just more receptive towards me. And I don't know if that's a gender-specific thing because I'm a man and, I sound the way I sound and I speak, or if it's just that females are more open to change, if you want to call it that, or hearing people out. But I find that sales in this industry is very difficult because you're selling something to someone, they're already buying it. You're not coming in and you're like, hey, I'm going to give you a table because you don't have a table in your house.
Yeah, you really get the opportunity to be the first to supply if you're supplying petroleum products.
Yeah.
It's probably an organization that's already buying it.
Yeah.
And if they are buying it, it's not something they actually want to buy. They prefer not to buy it.
Exactly. It's a grudge purchase.
Yeah,
also because it's so expensive.
It's not like something you saved up for. That's some nice brand that you've always wanted, certain kind of jacket or a certain kind of shoe or car. You don't actually want to buy petroleum if you had a choice. You have to buy it. So as you said, it is a grudge purchase.
Absolutely. And that's what I've found. And people are very slow to want to leave their suppliers.
Yeah.
Some people you give them the quotes and and their eyes go wide open and they're like, wow, really you can do that? I can save so much or get this kind of service. And you're like, yeah. And then they take another 2, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks. I've got somebody that and bless her, she's a lovely person, in case she watches this, but she really is a lovely person. But every week she's busy. And every week, so we've done all the groundwork with her, and she's happy. She's like, yes, I'm good to go, but we need to sit down and, get to the nitty-gritty of things. But every week for the last 5 weeks, she's like, no, next week. And you know what you do in sales? You call next week. You visit next week. You go next week, because there's going to come a day where next week is today.
Yeah.
And, she's ready for it. But that's why I say it's soul sapping, and it needs somebody with a thick skin. Sometimes you get flat out answers. No, I'm not interested. No, I don't want this. And how do you navigate that? But also the great thing about the current space or the world that we live in right now is that you don't need to go to school to learn any of these tricks about sales. If you need to upskill yourself in sales, there's countless of podcasts, be it on a streaming platform like YouTube or one of the music platforms. There are books, free books. There's even AI that can break down. And I've used AI to write my sales script, and I refine it as I go. And sometimes you get into a sales call or a meeting and you realize, oh, I actually need this. And you're able to add that, and you're like, okay, AI, I've added this, but it doesn't sound as great as when Shane says it. Please rewrite it. And it does. And I think, it's one thing, it's a tool, AI, whether it's ChatGPT or any of the other ones, it's tools that I know a lot of people are apprehensive about it, but I think it will unlock a lot of opportunities and abilities for a lot of people in business, especially those like me who are still starting out.
Yeah. I think there's a way to learn sales. I think it's more of a science. My background is engineering, and I found myself in sales at some stage. So I found myself being quite technical in terms of my approach. But there were a few things that I've learned over the years that makes sales a little more predictable than just going out there and hitting a number of targets and playing the numbers game and hoping for a little bit of success. And one of the key things is to identify, I think, right up front, what kind of sale you're trying to make.
Yes.
So there's the B2B sale, business to business sale, and there's a B2C sale, business to consumer. And we are very much in the B2B business, right? So we sell to other businesses as opposed to somebody on the street, as opposed to somebody that's walking into a shopping center, if that makes any sense. So the sale we make, when we invoice another business.
Yes.
Now, inside of that, you also get complex businesses and simple businesses. A simple business is there's one owner, pretty much runs the place, can make a decision around what he buys, who he buys it from. The complex business is a company that you're trying to sell to that has a CEO, a board of directors, an executive committee,
financial,
senior management team, financial department. That's quite complicated because inside those businesses sit what we call or often refer to as gatekeepers, recommenders, decision makers. And so it's quite important, I think, when you're selling to a big business to identify those individuals. Because if you start, our experience has been, if you start with a gatekeeper, they may very well block you at the gate because inside that big organization, they may well have their own agenda. And so I'm willing to give away a little bit of a secret in terms of how we approach things. We always go for the decision maker, but we try not to give the decision maker too much work to do. So what we do is we try and identify who makes, if you go up high enough in an organization, and it's not always the CEO, but if you go up high enough, there's always one person that has the power to say yay or nay.
Yes.
And it's worthwhile doing some homework to understand who that person is before you knock at the door. And it's worthwhile to start with them. Now, how you approach them is also something you need to think about because there are different ways in terms of that. But what you really want to do is you want to hit them with an interest-building statement of some sort.
Yeah.
So something punchy that gets them thinking about whether they need to listen to you or whether other people in their organization need to listen to you more. So for example, if you said to somebody, I'd like to sell you some fuel, that's one sort of opening line. But if you said to somebody, we are convinced that our organization can save you money on fuel.
That's my line.
Is that your line?
That's my line.
It's a good line.
Yeah.
It's a good line.
Amazing line.
But the next thing to do is to ask for 20 minutes to just gain more information so that you can build a proposal.
Yeah.
Or sometimes ask the decision maker to put you in touch with somebody that you can speak to gain more information so you can craft a proposal. Now, it's if the CEO of it or the decision maker puts you in touch with the right person to talk to, it's very different than you trying to engage with that person without that air cover. Because what happens is down the line, the CEO, the decision maker is going to ask that person, how's it going in terms of your discussion with Buhle that I referred to you?
Yeah.
You know, are you making headway there?
Yeah. Because now it seems like you've been referred by.
It seems
it's like they looked for you.
Yes.
Yes.
In the meantime, the CEO may just be interested in the offer because they want to save money for the business.
Yeah.
But doing it that way, if you go for the wrong person like the gatekeeper, you may land up getting stuck with somebody who's got his own supplier of preference. And they may say to you, Buhle, listen, I love what you're offering. I love your proposal is really great. Your price is fantastic. Let me get back to you in a few weeks around this. And you may find a few weeks goes by and they don't get back to you. And then you phone again and say, but what's happening? No. You know, I've given that proposal to one of my colleagues. They're also having a look at it. And we're going to get back to you in a week. We really like the work you've put in here. You may find that circles in a business and you just never get an outcome.
Yeah, I find
so. It's not bulletproof.
Yes, of course.
But our stats show that 3 out of 5 times we'll be successful with that approach.
Incredible stat.
3 out of 5.
That's
which I think is pretty high. But remember,
that must be like a record.
No, but remember for Gulfstream, we also know not everybody is a Gulfstream customer.
Yeah.
So we're quite selective about who we approach.
Absolutely.
So it's not that we'd have that kind of stat if we just went to 100 people or organizations that buy fuel. So that stat is on the back of who we've targeted to bring on board as customers, if that makes sense.
So tell me, you make a call, and I know this is my interview. You make a call to her, and you get Michelle at reception.
Yeah.
What's the next step? Because Michelle at reception is oftentimes that gatekeeper. You know, oftentimes you get, hi, I'd like to speak to, the CEO or somebody that, who deals with your diesel procurement. and they say, oh, no, they're not taking calls in this regard.
You've got to be careful with Michelle at reception. She could be the most powerful and influential person in that organization.
Yeah.
You could find that she's been in that organization for 20 years.
Yeah.
And the CEO or the decision maker depends on her for running his day. And, he's only going to respond to a meeting if she says that's the case.
Yeah.
So you've got to be very careful to jump somebody like Michelle.
Yeah.
But if you do get stuck like that, one of the tactics I found work sometimes is to just write a physical letter, put it in a really nice envelope for attention, whoever the decision maker is, and then physically go to Michelle and ask her if she wouldn't be so kind as to just hand this to her boss because, you think it could make a difference in his world or his business's world. So you could use different tactics.
Yeah.
They don't always work out in your favor. But I mean, you have to respect Michelle in your organization.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I do. And I think that's why I say I find a lot of favor from Michelle's in organizations. And I try to be as nice and warm and kind to them as possible. And obviously you do
Nothing
that
wrong with that.
because that's also your client at the end of the day. It's interesting you mentioned the letter because watching a podcast not so long ago from a British gentleman, very, very renowned podcaster. And the guy he was talking to is also like a business guru and finance guru, and his approach was that as well. He used to write letters and post them, not physically deliver them.
When was the last time you got a letter in a nice envelope?
Which wasn't a fine.
Yeah. Do you still even get fines in letter form? But where you got something physical.
Yeah.
If I found something like that on my desk, I'd open it.
Yeah.
I'd open it.
Absolutely. And I get it.
Yeah.
And that guy said, he went one better where if the guy's name was John or Jonathan, he would write, Dear Johnny, to just...
I'm not sure about
and
that.
he says, so his approach was, he used to say that because the letters get screened, and he doesn't go to Michelle. He sends mail, via the post, but Michelle screens the letters. And she would look at the letter and, oh, Johnny, okay, she clearly knows, this guy knows John, clearly, or Dear John, instead of Jonathan.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay, clearly knows the guy. And as a result, more often than not, letters ended up on the desk where they were supposed to.
But I think what you are saying is, what I'm hearing as well is, it's very important to do your homework up front.
Yeah.
So that you understand tactically how you are going into an organization, as opposed to just, dropping by and trying to get a meeting with whomever is willing to listen to your story about what you're selling. So there's some science to it.
Yeah,
and there's some homework to be done. There's some research to be done ahead of time.
Absolutely.
And that research will save you time because it will eliminate companies that are potentially not your customers.
Yeah.
Or that you potentially don't want to serve. Because I think when you are in the business-to-business game, you must be careful not to try to be everything to everybody. You must understand your strengths and then play to those strengths. Like you may do in a rugby game, I don't know.
Yeah, and you do. You can't take the kick and the throw and be the scrum half and everything. Absolutely.
Yeah, there you go.
Absolutely. No, and that's something that I've learned, and those are lessons. I mean, I've just learned that now as well. But those are the kind of lessons that I really enjoy about business. The fact that there's always another layer in business.
Yeah.
There's always something else to learn.
Yeah.
I'm sure with your 35 years of experience in this industry, you still learn things from time to time.
All the time. That's why I'm still doing it.
Absolutely.
But the petroleum industry is a very long value chain.
Yeah.
So what I wanted to ask you was, this thing starts from the point where you may pull crude oil out of the ground.
Yeah.
And you have to take the oil, you have to boil it so you can make petrol and diesel, which gets done at the refinery. Then you need to take it from there and probably put it into a depot. Then you take it from a depot and distribute it via trucks, reliable trucks, to customers.
Yeah.
And if you're not producing, you probably need to import and then follow the same sort of distribution channel.
Yeah.
What part of it is of interest to you? I know we were talking about selling just now. Is that really the side of the value chain that's of interest to you? Or do you have... Because I think it's difficult. It's not difficult or challenging to be interested in all aspects of it.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think it's challenging to do all aspects of it very well. I
Yeah.
think it's quite important to focus on certain areas only. So is there a particular area that's interesting of more interest to you?
Yeah, well, more interest, not necessarily, but maybe of equal interest. The wholesale part of it is very interesting. But the thing about wholesale is that the business you're running is a little bit different, right? You're not so much involved with the actual product as to just you moving the product. So you're getting it from your depot or a depot to the consumer or the customer. But I would like to move a little bit more upstream, to be honest with you, as the years progress.
Okay.
And I don't know what that will look like, especially in South Africa in the current market, whether that's as an importer or if, eventually when we have a fully functioning refinery and we can extract and refine ourselves. And, but that is that kind of the way that kind of business works, and this is from what I think, is something that appeals to me quite a lot. I like the nitty-gritty of it. I like, where do you start? How do you get the product? Where do you get the product? How do you move the product? And then who do you sell that product to? Who then goes and wholesales it?
Yeah, when I did some research on this a while back, I discovered a lot of big oil companies that we know today, the brands were started with government funding or even by governments. The Totals, Sasol's, I'll mention some of the names. I mean, it's out there. And with government funding, you can go and drill a hole for $20 million and hope that you find some oil. And you may have to drill a few of them, by the way.
Yes.
It's not so easy with private funding with private capital.
Yeah.
So when we thought about Gulfstream as well, we thought about how could we build an oil company in reverse and start with the customer, looking after the customer, making sure we fulfill the needs of the customer. Then you have demand, right?
Yeah.
And then you need to serve that demand by being able to deliver to the customer. But then you may need to store product so you can deliver reliably. Then you may need to manufacture your own product, but now you're buying a refinery.
Yes.
That's another ball game altogether. And then you need the feedstock for the refinery, so you have to drill for something. And I think it is possible to do that, but I think it's quite a long journey.
Yeah.
And it's quite risky because you need different skill sets in each one of those areas.
Yeah.
But I've been exposed to a number of those areas, and it's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun to deal, but I don't think it's fun to deal with your own money. I was fortunate to do it.
Yeah.
On the back of working for some of the bigger oil majors.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, that's your own money is a difficult thing to go into exploration and stuff like that with. But you mentioned the skill set, and one thing that I've learned over my career and all my careers and all the things that I've done. I mean, I also do like voiceover artistry and all these things. I've always been busy. But one thing that I've realized is that...
what sort of voiceovers do you do? When you say voiceover artistry?
Yeah. Okay, so I do...
Do you do like voices?
Voiceovers, commercial voiceovers. So I do voice for various brands. If there's a brand you've used, I've probably done a voiceover for it in this country. I've been a voiceover artist for close to 10 years now, professionally.
Right.
And it's amazing. It's amazing. You don't realize what goes into a simple advert.
Yeah.
Before you behind the scenes, and I remember, the ones I took a friend of mine, and he had no idea how adverts are made, and I said, "Listen, come, I'm going to go record a voice, then we can go wherever we're going afterwards." And by the time we walked out, he was stumped. He was like, "Gee, I always hear there's people on TV talking, and I never think to myself, how does this even happen?" And that was like another eye-opening, and you realize that there's more to life than what we think.
Okay.
But yes, voiceovers, I mainly, because of my voice, I mainly do motor vehicle voiceovers. So for car brands, I do a lot of banking voiceovers as well.
Okay.
Anything that needs to sound warm and respectable and... kind and essentially everything that I'm not. I'm kidding, but that's my niche. Okay, and it's an amazing.
But do you ever need to, as part of that job, like put on a voice or a different accent?
Absolutely.
And you do that?
I'm terrible with accents. I am terrible with accents. I try, and usually they're just like, no, it's fine. Put on voices, yes.
Okay.
I've had to do the movie guy a lot, which as much as I have a deep voice, to go this summer the whole time is not just you know, it doesn't
You sound like that guys from the movies.
You see,
Yeah.
but this is why they booked me for it, right? But to do it from start to finish, you know, in an hour-long voice note, you strain your voice. I always say my voice is heavy.
Yeah.
It's got a lot of texture, so it takes longer for it to warm up. And once it's warm, if you strain it, it strains very quickly. Okay. You know, it's like driving a truck on high gears, just all the time, or car on high gears in general. You're going to strain the engine. Yeah. But yeah, I've had to do quite a lot of acting as well. Yeah. And I'm not an actor. And then they tell you, no, you need to sound, you know, however it is, you need to sound. And you try and eventually you get it out. Look, with experience, like anything, you get better at it and you learn your tricks to make things work.
Yeah, I've had some fun with my accent, which has developed a little bit over time. Yeah. But I think people can still hear that I'm, you know, I'm from Cape Town.
We know where you're from.
Yeah. But I don't have to speak like this. But this is the way I speak. But the problem I have sometimes is if I'm traveling. So, for example, if I went to the UK and I ask somebody, can you help me? Can you show me the road to Buckingham Palace? They won't understand because they're not used to listening to the accent. Yeah. Then I just change it and I'd go, could you show me the road to Buckingham Palace, please? And then they'd know exactly what I'm saying. And then I'd go, thank you very much. I'll think I'll find it from here. Then they'll be like, but why don't you just speak like that to begin with? So we can understand what you're saying.
I'm taking the mickey out of you.
No, but
incredible. And you have to do that.
I do it sometimes just to make life a bit easier when I'm overseas.
And I'm very fortunate that I've got a very neutral accent. So I'm able to actually a lot of the times people I speak to, especially on the phone, are like, where are you from? And I'm like, Joburg. Like, no, man, no, you're not American. You know, a quick side note on accents. You know, part of my career, I worked at a call center for a very large medical aid company in South Africa, and it was great fun. And I brought the same best friend whose dad is the diesel mechanic who I lived with. I brought him into the call center with me. He followed me, I think, about 3 months later. Yeah. And because they knew that I was this guy's friend, colored guy as well, Kyle. Because they knew that I was this guy's friend, they you know, the one day I think the team leader or someone came to me and said, listen, this guy's accent is a bit heavy on the phone, hey? Yeah. Can you just speak to him? And I was like, first of all, I'm like, why is it peer-to-peer review, this thing? You're the boss, but okay, fine. Let me go speak to him. And I had the chat with Kyle, who, mind you, we've been so intertwined in our lives. I've even fired him before. He used to work at a store that I once sold clothes at, and I was his boss. Okay. And I got to fire him, but he'll always maintain he quit. But in any case, that's a story for another day. So I go and I speak to Kyle, and I said, Kyle, listen, bro, they have a problem with your accent. Can you do something? And he said, oh, okay, fine. And so Kyle would, you know, the twang was so bad that you could tell it was put on. But it worked for him. Okay. You know, and it's funny you say that. And all of a sudden people understood him, they heard him, and I thought to myself, he is so fake because I know Kyle as who he is and this is how he sounds. And but great lessons learned there as well. And the lesson. And this is what's great about, you know, the story of life is that everything you go through, depending on how you look at it, is a building block to who you are. Even those things that break you down sometimes. Yeah. And you know, I've told you, even off camera, even in other conversations, I've told you a little bit more about, you know, the building blocks of my life, some of them that were painful and that actually broke me in those moments. And, you know, those are the kind of things that have shaped me especially and been able to evolve my dreams. You know, like I was in the call center. I took calls for, I think, about a year and a half. Yeah. I was very fortunate that I shot up the call center very quickly. And I think at the time I was the quickest employee to go from as a call center agent to a team leader within that company. But that skill that I learned to talk to people, you know, and in a call center, you don't call a call center to chat. You know, you're not calling your medical aid to be like, hey, I was wondering what you ate for lunch. Objective. You have an objective. And usually that objective is something didn't get paid. So I'm irate, I'm irritable, I want my money, da-da-da-da-da. And it taught me how to get people off that irate. How do you deal with a client that's upset, that's coming? And I always used to say this. So eventually when I became team leader, I said, guys, irate clients we have a rating of 1 to 10. I said, they're your 10s. Yeah. they're the clients that they're the easiest to get a great rating from, because all they want is for you to solve their problem.
You have an opportunity.
You have an opportunity.
Right there.
Exactly.
Because they're still talking to you.
Exactly. Well, they're forced to, because they want their thing paid.
No, but my experience has been when a customer stops talking, or they've gone quiet, they don't care anymore.
Yeah.
But while they're shouting at you and they're still irate, as you were saying,
you mean, yes.
they still care about the issue, and you still have an opportunity to solve the problem.
100%. And that's
but it's hard to look at it like that at the time.
Because also you tend to internalize and take things a bit more personally, and they'll call you and say, you guys are useless. And you're like, oh, I just picked up your call. You guys, you're incompetent. And, so the different metrics, and I'm sorry to hop on this a little bit, but there are different metrics in the call center. And one of the metrics was average handling time, AHT, is how long it takes you from hello to goodbye.
Okay.
I had the worst AHT. The worst, right? My average handling time was, I think it was supposed to be like 2.5 minutes a call.
Yeah.
And that is so that you've got the right amount of staff available to contend with the influx of calls.
But it also suggests or encourages you to get done with the call as quickly as possible, which may be a bit counterintuitive.
It is a bit counterintuitive.
If you consider what you're trying to achieve.
But on the other hand, you're picking up a call from a Shane who's only been holding for a minute or 30 seconds.
Right.
Whereas if everyone is on calls for 5 or 6 minutes, all of a sudden Shane has to hold for 10 minutes.
Okay.
You understand? And now Shane is, he's like, are you even finishing my airtime? And this was an inbound call center, so I couldn't even say, I'm going to call you back, because that means I go off the queue, right? But in any case, I struggled with AHT because that was never my approach. And I always I try to give whatever it is that I'm doing some love. And, I remember once I won an award for the most amount of 10s. So I had, you get a survey. By the way, you get surveys, reply to them. People get paid from those things. Yeah. It actually impacts someone, especially if you really liked the interaction. Reply to those surveys, people get money from them, and give the good rating if you need to. If you don't, okay, well, that's also fine, because we get trained from that as well. But I had the most amount of 10s, and I can't remember how many surveys I had, but it was well over 100, 150 in a month, where people reply. Now, you understand, you only reply when someone moves you to reply. Yeah. Like, if you just call and, you get what you want, but the person wasn't particularly special, you don't really care for it.
Sure.
And many people replied, and I had the most amount of 10s. Yeah. And I won that award. And I remember they had all my stats up on the board, and they were, making the speech about me or whatever it was. And then they looked at my average handling time, and I was like probably the third highest in the company, and they were like, you need to work on that, don't you? Hey. And I said, yeah, but you've got how many happy customers? And it honestly, as much as you would like to say, well, I don't know, it depends on the business, but I thought to myself, as much as I can sort out your problem, but if you feel better about it, you'd even buy an extra service, an extra product. Yeah. Because you're like, this company knows what they're doing, because I represent the company.
And you promote the company.
I promote the company. So when you hang up, you're not thinking, oh, Buhle was amazing. You're thinking, these guys know what they're doing. They're hiring right. These are the kind of people I want to be involved with. And that's something that I've also taken into this space that I'm at now. We go back to sales, and we spoke about, the Michelle at the front desk. And that's the kind of love that you give them. And you find a way to just crawl inside of them a little bit and see what you can come out with.
It sounds to me like creating demand on the sales side you're really passionate about.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing.
Absolutely. It really is. It really is something. And what I love about sales is that it's a human interaction. I thrive with human interaction. Yeah. I enjoy speaking to people. And it's just, getting the flow right. And I'm not going to come here and be like, oh, I've got it figured out. Definitely not. And as a matter of fact, if you lie to yourself like that, you're cutting yourself short very quickly. You're going to end up in a ditch very quickly. So it's a thing that I'm still working on, still learning. I'll eventually get there. And I know that the wisdom that you share and you often share in our conversations that we have, that's something that I take in. And also wisdom from other people, not even necessarily in the space, but who have good pieces of information and nuggets of information to share. But it's... even if it's B2B, it's all about the people at the end of the day. and making sure that the person you sell to is happy.
Yeah, I think that's
and they
right.
like you.
Buhle, where to from here for you?
Yeah, so now it's just growing Matulini energy. It's growing Matulini energy. It's getting the business to the heights that I've dreamt of, and it's really just head down and focusing. Eventually, I'm sorry to say this to my current employer, but eventually, and I think it's fair that people dream to do more. Eventually, I do want to leave and just be focused and just run my business, and really just get it right, and see how it turns out. I'm really excited about the future. I'm excited about the uncertainty of it all. There's obviously on both sides uncertainty, negative and positive, but I'm excited about it all, and that's all it is for me at the moment. I work from the morning till the noon on Matulini energy, and then I go to work and I do my other job, and I make sure that I give my best there, and I still deliver quality products, because I also understand that in that side of space, especially as somebody that's in media and that's been in media for so long, the quality of your work, again, you represent the company. So no one's going to be like, MultiChoice are hiring this guy's not. No, they'll say, yeah, this guy's nonsense, but why would MultiChoice even put him on air? Why would you even, and that's not something that I ever want to be associated with. I take pride in myself, my image, my work, and it's something that I will always do up until the last. But yeah, all in all, it's all about business at the moment. It's all about business going forward, growing my business, growing my family, and seeing what's next. I don't want to think too far ahead.
Yeah.
One game at a time.
Well, I want to take this opportunity to wish you and your family well on your journey.
Thank you.
I think the petroleum industry, in fact, I just think the South African business environment is going to be better off because somebody like you is doing what you're doing. I really want to wish you all the best. Concluding this conversation now is obviously not the conclusion of the relationship we have with
Absolutely.
you. We'll try and support you where we can. And I think mature businesses should really try and help businesses that are starting out more in South Africa, considering how important that is for South Africa's economy and for South Africa's future. I absolutely loved your rugby analogy, by the way. I'm just reflecting on that now and thinking, I think the Springboks currently are probably a great example of what South Africa can be, but it's also a great example of what business can be, because you do need all these different things. And you need to be able to shoulder some pain.
Absolutely.
For the gain that you're looking for. So I really wish you luck on your journey. I also want to thank you for coming in and spending some time with us. Now, I don't know if you know, but I have this bell over here.
Okay.
And this bell is quite important in Gulfstream's world, because this bell only gets rung when something really special happens in the organization.
The infamous bell.
And so, Buhle, thank you for being on Show and Tell.
Thank you.
You, sir, are going to have the opportunity, should you so choose,
yes,
to ring the legendary Gulfstream bell.
Amazing. I will do that. If I may, before I do, I want to thank you as well, Shane, for your support, but I think for setting an example. Like you say, it's something that big businesses have to do, but the reason why big businesses have to do it is because there's a vacuum. It's something that we should be looking at as a country, as the government. I know there's, they try, and it's just not good enough, unfortunately. As a business owner, I know it's not good enough, and that's why especially I, am so fortunate to have someone like you, a company like Gulfstream Energy, that, looks after and takes care and understands that there's a future, and there's a future for not just Gulfstream Energy, but for other people. And that all of us have a part to play in making this country a great place. So I really appreciate that, and I really appreciate your friendship, and I know we're going to do great things together.
You're too kind, but thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Time to ring the bell.
Yeah, I think
how
so.
do I ring it? I don't want to mess it up.
You can choose the way you do it.
So if I do...
Be creative if you like.
That's that.
I think that's good enough.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks again.